Folks, we're continuing in Tanya in chapter 35. We are speaking of a metaphor to give us an understanding. What's the purpose of the Beinoni? What's the purpose of this person who has self-mastery, of thought, speech, and action, which is a very high level of commitment and of self-evolvement, but yet we have a trouble with it because really not transforming themselves, because they still have a negative inclination within them that has not been transformed. The negative urges of the heart are still there, unlike the righteous. So we're trying to understand. So we gave a metaphor from the Zohar of where is the light of God in someone's life? How can you produce the light of God in your life? So we explained that it can't be done just by the mere virtue of who you are in a divine soul that you have within you, that is a part of God, that has the love of God, because it's not totally nullified. So we'll explain a little more what that means. It's not totally one with God. It's only by way of the mitzvah that you can become and create that light of God. Now, when you create a light, what do you need? You need a fuel. You need something that holds on to the fuel that creates then that light. So you have a wick. The wick is metaphorically the body of the individual that holds on to the fuel, and that fuel is, again, the mitzvah that accomplishes it, bringing the light of God in our lives, the command of God, the 613 commandments, that brings that light of God that encompasses us, that is, that we become united in one with. And again, as opposed to the natural love that the soul has, and if you just express it, like if you're at the Grand Canyon and you're like wowed by the scene, and you're moved, your soul is moved by that experience for the love of God, and you're just feeling God's presence, God's magnificence, and so on. That doesn't give you a true connection. But if you take that moment and that feeling of that love that you have, and now you actually give charity, now you're really connected. Or if you go and, put on film with another Jew, right? Or you do something that is in the nature of connecting to the will of God, the inner desire of God, as we explained yesterday, is the mitzvah, then you're totally absorbed in the light of God that you've created in that moment. Now let me give two sides of the coin over here. There's the experience versus being. There's spiritual Jew versus a Jew simply. There's the outcome of a cause versus the cause itself. There's the human condition versus divine reality. There is I am versus I'm not. Self-fulfillment versus self-abnegation. Or in Hebrew terminology or Hasidic terminology, yesh versus bittul. Separate versus connected. So let me explain. The human condition is such that we feel separate. We don't feel connected. That's the human condition. And therefore, what am I seeking? Self-fulfillment. I'm seeking to fill myself with more. I become a bigger I am, right? And therefore, I'm always looking at what the outcome will be of whatever it is, because will that fill me more or not? Will that give me more or not? So therefore, I become if I'm spiritual Jew, seeking the experience, because that experience will fill me and make me bigger, make me more. But in the end, that makes you separate, not connected. Versus the person who it's not about me. It's about something greater than me, a divine reality. that I'm seeking to connect to? Well, the way I can only do that is by self-abnegation. And therefore, what's important is the cause. And I'm just simply a Jew. I'm just being rather than seeking the experience. So let me explain that. The divine presence of God can only find itself in a place where that arrests itself on us when we are not seeking our own self-identity, when we're not seeking to be separate or a bigger I am, but completely nullified. And then that light, the light of God, can rest upon me. Even a perfectly righteous individual who has the love of God so palpable and powerful in their soul will not be able to experience the being, the connectiveness, that I'm not, and to experience, to have the divine reality that is a part of them, if all they're at the Grand Canyon experiencing that love of God in that moment, because that love of God means I am, and as we've spoken about yesterday, I am seeking the experience of love, and God happens to be the object of my love. It's a true object of my love, and there's a truth to it, but there's not a true unity and oneness here, not a true connection, because really what I'm connecting is to my self-love in a sense, even with the righteous. Therefore, the only thing that we can is when we are able to put ourselves aside, self-abnegation, bittul as it's called, that I'm not. In other words, I'm not seeking self-fulfillment. I'm seeking the divine reality. And I'm connecting to that divine reality through the will of God, what he wants, a mitzvah, simple mitzvah. Whatever that mitzvah is, putting on tefillin for a Jew, for giving charity, for every human being, the 7 Noahide laws and so on. And then I'm in a simplistic manner, simply just a Jew being connected. How? Because of that self-abnegation. Then the light of God is revealed upon me in that moment. I can only be connected to something greater than me when I give myself over to that greatness that's beyond me. The ultimate greatness is God that I can't fathom with my mind, and even with my heart, I can't truly connect. But through the act of the mitzvah, which is itself an expression of the inner will of God, that will of God is totally bound up in one with God, then I create that light in my life. Today's a very short Tanya. I made it long already. Shorter. That's a few words today. There's a note over here that says that in the divine order process of things, Chachma is the capability of taking the Ein Sof, the limitlessness of God, and expressing it, right? The Ein Sof, the true oneness of God. Chachma has the capability of expressing that. How so? Chachma we translate it as wisdom, divine wisdom, because the word Chachma comes from koachma, the power of what? It's bittul, it's self-abnegation. It's not about myself. It's about expressing something greater than myself. So therefore it has the capability, divine wisdom, to express the infinite of God. As the Alter Rebbe writes in it. And that's a very short teachings today. Do we have any questions from do we have any questions over here from on Facebook? Or do we have from anybody? Let's see. Also, I know now that. Who can share? Okay. John says, I know now that the soul of even a tzadik retains its separate identity and requires a mitzvah to completely and seamlessly merge. Seamlessly merge with the divine light and be absorbed in the will of God. Beautiful. Well said. Irma says, I know now that when we are able to put ourselves aside and do the mitzvah, the light of God will be revealed in us at that moment. Excellent. David, I know now that I can connect up with God, not making a bigger me, but humbling myself to Hashem's will. Right? It's connecting to, yeah. Actually, you become a much ultimately bigger and greater individual. Clem says, I know now that the body can only act as a wick and not as the oil, and the physical body cannot be absorbed within the light of the Shekhinah, and it's always be separate from the body. Separate. Good deeds will provide for the oil, charity, tzedakah, and becoming connected. Bittul. Excellent. All right. Now, I don't know if it's even possible, by the way, because I'm doing things a little differently here. I don't know if I can get somebody to come and someone to come on. I don't see, no, because I'm not using my phone. All right, folks. I think that's it for today, unless someone else has something to share or to ask. Short teachings today. Again, just to bring out the idea over here, the human condition is that we're seeking an experience. And here, even learning Tanya, the spiritual experience, right? And that becomes the outcome rather than the cause itself. Just learning. And therefore, and the reason for that is because I'm seeking self-fulfillment, which makes me a bigger I am, because I'm filling self, which just ultimately means I'm going to be, I'm just going to be separate from God and ultimately separate from other people, because that's what I'm seeking, is merely being a greater self, and that's a lack of connectivity. All right, folks. Be an empty vessel. In a sense, yes, Deborah. John is asking, does the tzimtzum involve the divine light, but not the essence of God? Yes, so tzimtzum is in the act of creation, and in the act of the mitzvah, there is no tzimtzum. It's an expression of, of a connection to the oneness of God. There is no tzimtzum. Right? All right, folks. A reminder, today, noontime, we have myeshiva.ca on Zoom and on Chabad ZK Facebook. Come and join us, learn with us, and we continue our conversation. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful, great day.